Sometimes dead studios do tell tales. This is Fragments of Silicon.
Poignant. Anyway, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me, as always, is the regular crew.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, well, let's just get to the news. Alex, why don't you start us off this week?
Well, not that I'm trying to compete with anyone, because certainly it hasn't been that bad, but the weather's been kind of a pain here lately. It was very rainy the last couple of days, and today it's been kind of on the hot side, so that was no fun. The work we're planning on having done on the insulation in our attic has been postponed twice and is now scheduled for tomorrow instead of Monday and Tuesday this week. So
Oh boy,
we'll see how
housework.
that goes. I'm not doesn't I'm not gonna I'm concerned about sleep basically because they'll probably be starting before I'm supposed to be awake. Anyway, in video games, still been playing Dead Cells a surprising amount. But also I am looking forward to Mega Man 11 coming out next week. I'm not really great at Mega Man games, but I enjoy them. And that's about all I got.
Okay. Twilight?
Well, just like with Galax, it's been raining here for the past few days, and today was more on the soggy side than hot. And it rained any though. Um, and so at work, we've been raising funds for the states that were hit by the hurricane, and that's been going pretty well. And so not much going on around here though, and in terms of games, I'm in working on Dragon Quest 11 some more again, and waiting for Mega Man 11 for next week, and that's about it.
Okay. Well, Petty Fit, it's your go.
Let's see. Monday I have to go see my new knee doctor, so this is gonna be fun.
Hopefully that works out better than your last one.
Yeah, like the big problem with my other ones is they were like go do physical therapy, but my insurance doesn't cover it and I can't afford it out of pocket.
Right.
Mm.
And so hopefully something changes because knee problems suck.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, you probably do need physical therapy. The real problem is that insurance doesn't cover it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Well, it's like I've had because of my cerebral palsy, I've had problems with my legs and or knees since I was young. So because of that, whatever I did to my knee, it probably isn't healing properly. So we need to figure out something else. So that's fun. And also Thursday, I have my hearing for disability. So that's a thing.
This Thursday or next Thursday?
This Thursday. Well, not. I mean Thursday next week, not tomorrow.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting today's Wednesday. Okay.
Trust me, I get those confusing designations from people.
Yeah. So expect me to be a nervous wreck next week.
Well,
Mm.
like, hopefully it doesn't impact gameplay too much.
Indeed.
Anything else?
As far as gaming goes, we took our first shot at AlphaScape Savage yesterday. Made surprising amount of progress. Like, we might actually be able to down it in a reasonable amount of time, at least 9. Then we have 3 more to get through. Those are gonna be fun. I'm not looking forward to 11, but that's more I don't know left from right. And also, it seems that my wireless headset I usually use on my phone has crapped out on me, and I just got this one back in May, so I'm kind of pissed off about that. But I did get the extended warranty on it, so I'm basically just gonna get an Amazon gift card refund and then just go buy something else. Preferably never LG. And I think that's it.
All right, my go.
Yep.
Let's see. Programming notes. First off, we had our first European interview of the season yesterday. I know a bit later than we usually do, but sometimes that's how scheduling works out. It is in the archive. I don't know if highlights have been cut yet.
If they haven't been, they will be cut either tonight or tomorrow morning.
Right. Let's see. Max Gaming stream project is moving forward. Not exactly sure when he's going to start that, but it seems like it's closer than it's ever been. And that will be syndicated here on Mondays.
Yeah, like if I'm not streaming Final Fantasy stuff or he's streaming at a time that I'm not active, the Fragments channel will just automatically host it. So
That's the wonders of, that's the wonders of Twitch.
Yeah, also the bot in our Discord will also let you guys know when it goes live.
Right. And if you haven't joined our Discord, you should do so.
Link at the bottom. It should be an infinite link.
Right. Let's see. Kevin is back. His adventures and misadventures with the hurricane are officially at an end, and
his house was not destroyed.
And he's got electricity back, so he should be joining us for the post-show festivities once again, unless something has that we are unaware of has come up. Like, let's see. I guess briefly, Naka and Ogre have new Let's Plays, but if they want to talk about that, they can be here. It's like Ogre and Naka are doing Alien Isolation, which is interesting because it's something that Ogre's talked about for a couple years now. Like, he sometimes talks about the future Let's Play projects in the writer's room, or he did. But, this is one of those, I guess he got over his fears.
I can't wait till they do Subnautica. That's going to be fun.
Oh, no, it's like, I don't think that's where this path leads. The path here is probably towards Dead Space. That's another one. That's another one he's been aching to do, sorta, kinda.
So have they resolved the frame rates issues in Alien Isolation, or is it still like a slideshow?
It's definitely better in the new episodes, but yeah, episode 1 was like, ooh.
I thought there was something wrong with my YouTube player for a second.
Yeah,
so did I.
This has happened when Naka's done other.
Yeah, part of the problem is apparently Naka. He has his new computer belt, but he just doesn't want to use it.
I can imagine why. I mean, to preface to personal news, I had to reinstall Mozilla today. And I'm like, thankfully all of my passwords and shit were saved. I had to re-enter them, and I had to reinstall all of my extensions. But
this is why I like using Chrome. Everything's saved in my Google account.
I'm like, I use Chrome as well. I have both. So when things like, oh, Mozilla crashed and isn't opening because of corruption issues, I can move to the other one without, too much of an issue. It always helps to have backups. I think that took about a half an hour. I'm just glad, like the data wasn't erased. So, I didn't have to worry about, inputting every password that I might have forgotten in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Not fun times. Anyway, and I suspect that's why Naka hasn't moved on to his new computer. Like, the everything is there on his current one, and he's comfortable with it. Do not underestimate the desire for comfort with your tool set.
Indeed.
But yeah, it's like, if Naka's still getting those frame rate issues, he might want to look into, switching.
Yeah.
At least moving the Let's Play stuff to that, because that was unwatchable at points.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure it probably played fine without recording, but oh boy, recording software takes some resources. As a streamer, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, I remember his complaints about Fraps.
Fraps is an evil program, and I'm not sure why people still use it. Good God.
Well, we're talking about back in the day.
I know.
We're talking about when he was on the show. So, I'm like, Fraps, I think, was a lot more widespread 5 years ago. Honestly, I've heard a lot about Fraps lately. Like,
people still use it for other things, but it's less. But you're more likely to see OBS or XSplit used for capturing now.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, though knowing Naka, he probably still uses Fraps.
Probably.
Anyway. Yeah, so I think that's about it. So, merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week is Zachary Manko of Megacat Studios.
Hello.
Oh, how you doing tonight?
Good.
Good to hear. Right, so we like to start things off by asking the people behind the games and such, what got them interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Oh, man. Well, I grew up with video games. I was a child of the 80s, so I grew up with the NES and the Sega Genesis, and, kind of played them all my life, and kind of dropped off during college. And then towards the end of college, I got back into, you guys were talking about Mega Man, actually, Mega Man 11 coming out. I got into Mega Man 9 when it came out, on Xbox Live Arcade, and I was like, oh man, a new retro Mega Man game, that's so cool. And that kind of got me really back into them. I started getting into like the old Super Nintendo games that I missed out on because I was always playing Sega. I never had a Super Nintendo growing up, and from there just had a kind of abiding interest in it as the industry really took off. And from there I just started freelance writing for the company I work with now. I was fortunate enough to get as the company was kind of taking off. So now I have, a much larger role, but that's how it all started. Just, a lifelong sort of fascination and appreciation and love for them.
Yeah, that's a pretty common storyline from the people who, from game developers. It's like, now, as I understand it, Megacat Studios started off in the homebrew scene.
That is correct. Yes, we were doing contract game dev for companies like Boston Scientific, for example, and we wanted to do something for ourselves, like our own IP. And most of us, had grown up with the retro systems and whatnot. So we're like, hey, let's do a Nintendo game, and we made a physical cartridge Nintendo game, and we had such a blast doing it that we decided to kind of jump in with both, continually release new titles for these legacy systems.
Right. How long ago was that?
That was about 3 years ago at this point.
It is a strange phenomenon there's a regular cottage industry for releasing physical games on old systems. And I suppose my next question is like the actual manufacturing process of making a Genesis card or a NES card in today's age. How do you go about doing that?
Well, we actually own the reaction molds to make the physical plastic cartridge, the shell itself, and so that lets us do kind of custom colors. Like the shell for Logjammers NES, for example, is a green translucent shell. Our game Coffee Crisis, which is like a heavy metal coffee themed brawler, has like a red shell, you know, because it's all metal. But yeah, it's kind of a huge pain actually because not only do you have to work within the limitations of the retro systems and everything, but now you're also thinking about physical distribution and manufacturing. So playtesting becomes a major hurdle because once a NES game is out there, you can't put out a patch or a bug fix. You have to make sure it's right the first time, otherwise you got some unhappy customers. So it's definitely a hurdle. It's definitely a challenge, but we kind of knew that going in. We really want to offer the authentic experience of holding a game in your hands, putting it in your system, and up the box and the manual, kind of recreate that nostalgic feeling of sitting in the back of your mom's car on the way home from the store and tearing into the box and opening the manual and reading it and checking out and everything. So we definitely wanted to kind of bring that feeling back.
I can relate to that. I remember some manuals of yore, like
back in the day when they had comic books in them.
I'm like, maybe not that far. I mean, when I think that, I think like the Atari 2600, like that was the thing there. But I'm talking more like the original Legend of Zelda manual, for example, or the manual to Final Fantasy II for the Super NES.
Yeah, some of them, because there wasn't much room for text in the games, have pretty expansive information about the plot and the characters and stuff.
Or hell, I grew up in a home that had a PC in the 80s, so
yeah, a lot of the early ones had pictures of all the enemies or whatever.
Right, and like some of them would have like guides, like Phantasy Star 2. Because that needed it. Oh, God, did that need all the help you could get? But yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, all that is, or at least was, kind of a lost art. But it, perhaps one of the most inexplicable things this generation is kind of a return with physical goods, not just the boxes, the cartridges. But manuals and stuff like that, and I'm not just talking about retro fare like this, but like the Switch regularly gets packages like this from Nicholas and Limited Run Games, among others. So it's not something that I'm personally interested, but I'm glad to see it come back. Anyway,
I think there's kind of a, like you said, it's like a lost art, the manual thing. Definitely, absolutely. It's a great place to show off like concept art or kind of like take this little small like 8-bit, 8x8 pixel sprite and show like, oh, this is what what it would look like. But it's also a great place to put text that kind of put all the tutorial information there. That lets us to put more information in game on the cartridge. It allows us to put more game in the game and save all the kind of hand holding and instructions and whatnot, and throw that in the manual. But yeah, the physical thing, I think it says something about kind of the way people feel about everything being so digital nowadays. I think there's a sort of a reaction towards it, like oh man, maybe we spend on too much time on the screen, and there's this need to kind of get physical in this digital world. I think that's one reason like the escape room boom is so popular. It's because it's this social event and a shared space with other people. I think it's a lot different. Fills a different need than watching TV or playing games online or something like that.
Right. Anyway, so diving more into this, outside of the obvious, what are the differences of like manufacturing an NES cartridge versus say a Genesis cartridge?
Mostly cost of goods. the NES stuff is actually a little bit more pricey than the Genesis. But ultimately, the process is the same. We're soldering boards together and chips onto boards, and then packaging it up, and hand screwing everything together, putting the labels on, and sending them out.
Do you get the?
So it's a matter of.
Sorry, do you get the cases from like old discarded NES games, or do you manufacture those?
No. Yeah, we manufacture them. We don't do any of the. We don't do like donor shells or anything like that. No. It's we always want to send out just like the play testing and the actual game itself. We want to make sure that we have a quality product we're sending out to our customers. We want them to get something worthwhile and that they can be proud of and that we can be proud of. So we don't use any donor parts at all.
That makes sense.
Right. And well, this kind of leads us to the special edition wooden NES cartridge. I know my colleague over here has been wanting to ask you many questions about it.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious about like the mechanics of. I mean, I guess physically making it fit isn't that hard, but like, is it how thick is the wood? How much space is inside? Is it just like laminated wood, or is it like solid?
It's actually several layers of wood. I think it's about like 5. I guess you call them like layers, whatever, what have you. So there's like a top and a bottom, and then there's ones in between that are varying thickness and that are cut a certain way to be able to fit the board inside. So it literally is a hand carved, handcrafted good. It's for the limited edition, we go all out, and like I said, we always want to send something that our customers can be proud of. And I think all our limited edition shells, especially the log jammers, wooden one, is definitely something that can stand proudly on their shelf next to the other gear.
And there's no concerns. I don't know. I imagine it's not as bad as this with like an actual computer, but like the board doesn't get too hot or anything for that to be a problem.
We've play tested it many times. We brought the limited edition with us to conventions and stuff. We've had it running, all weekend without problem. So yeah, no concerns there.
Okay, I was just curious because that seems like stuff that you'd have to at least make sure was going right before you decided to go with a very different construction than two pieces of plastic.
We always, start out with a prototype. Right. Just, we prototype it and test it and make sure it's good to go before sending it out into the world. Because you're absolutely right. Yeah, something like that. A fire hazard from your Nintendo cartridge. Yeah.
And how many of these limited edition wooden cartridges are going to be available?
So right now they're available through the Kickstarter, and it's there's a run of 35. But I'm sure if we hit that, we'll be able to do another run.
All right. And that provides a good segue to, the Kickstarter. So currently, as time of recording, the current project of Megacat Studios, Log Jammers, is having an active Kickstarter. It's got about 15 days to go. Pledged $10,767 out of an $20,000 goal, so over halfway there. So it's looking good. And before we get into the details of the Kickstarter itself, why don't you tell us a bit about the game Log Jammers?
So Log Jammers is an action arcade sports game where you play a lumberjack of varying degrees of silliness that's jamming on a log, kind of running on a log in the water, and your goal is to throw an axe behind your opponent into their goal. They can catch your axe and throw it back at you. So it's kind of like Pong on crack. It's kind of like we've had a lot of comparisons with Windjammers. It's actually kind of what the game's based off of, but we took the Windjammers formula and just made the gameplay faster and made it a whole heck of a lot sillier. So there's different, like I said, different characters you can play as. Each have their own statistics, their own special abilities. There's different power-ups. There's these trash talking scenes after every match. To we really wanted to evoke not only tournament play, but also the feeling of couch co-op, being on the couch next to your buddy, and then ribbing them when you beat them, and And then so it started out as the NES version, and right now we're bringing the PC version to Kickstarter. It's mostly finished. The Kickstarter is there to kind of help us put some final polish on it and to port it to your consoles, Switch, Xbox One, and PS4. It's also helping us do the Chroma integration, which is a feature from Razer hardware. Kind of lets you put on like a light show with your keyboard and your mouse, your headphones, what have you. And then also to do the Twitch and Mixer integration for the special modes for those.
So, so the base game, the NES game, is finished, and that has no bearing on this Kickstarter, if I'm understanding that correctly.
That is correct. You can get the NES game through the Kickstarter. It's actually part of several reward tiers.
Right. And I suppose the next question is there any perceptible difference between the NES version and like the PC version?
A lot of this is the PC one, is obviously better graphics, better sound, updated gameplay. Online multiplayer, I think, would be the biggest one for a lot of people. As I said, the Twitch and Mixer integration, those special modes. So it takes the same.
You mean you're not including like
just brings
an
it to the
entire
modern
modem?
age.
Oh man, you mean you're not like including an entire modem in the NES card?
I mean,
something to do for the LE. Yeah, we'll send out a wooden modem.
Yeah.
The sad thing is technically possible.
Right.
Dial up, let's go. All right,
Anyway,
I'm done.
Yeah. Petty Fan, you have one of those Chroma keyboards, don't you?
Yep.
I thought so. Anyway, so what are your reward tiers?
So we have everything from a copy of the game, which includes the OST and gets the backer's name in the special thanks section of the credits of the game. We have a special kind of a 4 for the price of 3 version. We have one that gets you special access to the Mega Cat Discord for the backers only. And then we have the tiers that include the NES version. There's one with the cart only. There's one with cart and box and manual. And then there's the LE wooden shell. And then we also have some like higher echelon tiers, including a live Twitch stream Logjammers tournament with us, the Mega Cat crew. And then the creme de la creme is getting your face in the game. We have lots of silly kind of like peripheral characters in the game. There's one level where it's kind of like bear hell. And we have a bunch of parodies of famous bears that are kind of sitting around the sidelines and react to the gameplay. And we will add you and your face to a level of your choice. So it's kind of a way of jamming the fans into Logjammers.
And what sort of like pricing structures are you offering? What's the maximum amount?
It starts out, it's anywhere from.
Go ahead.
That top tier that I just mentioned is $1,000, but then people can Kickstarter. You can kind of do whatever you want. You can pledge whatever amount you'd like. So if someone wants to pledge $50,000, I mean, I'll definitely allow it.
That makes sense. Like
no complaints here.
Nope. I'd imagine not. And I suppose the next question is, do you have any sort of stretch goals if you meet your funding?
Right now, we're focusing on just hitting our first target. If we get close enough, and it seems like we're going to go above and beyond that, we've talked about adding some things.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. That's actually a good idea. It's like many is the Kickstarter that got bogged down by extra goals out the gates.
Right.
Anyway, so should everything go according to plan, what's the timeline of development?
Like I said, the game is the PC version is mostly complete. So the biggest part will be the console ports. We expect to have the PC version and all the features I mentioned, like the Twitch integration, the special modes, done in October. So basically, the month the Kickstarter ends, by the end of that month, we intend to have the game ready, the full PC version ready to go. And then the console ports, we're looking at Q1 2019s.
Now, is this game being built in like Unity or another middleware engine? Okay.
It is indeed in Unity.
That's what I thought. Given the need for portability, and I'm going to wager a guess that the NES version is not in Unity.
No, it's not. Although that would be awesome if Unity made a dev kit for the NES. No, the NES version is actually in a mixture of C and assembly.
That sounds
because,
about right.
That's what the NES can run.
Yeah. That's the kind of coding you had to do back in the day.
Right.
So, do they feel the same when you're playing? Like, was it difficult to get the physics to feel about the same?
One difference is that the NES version is vertically oriented, so you move left and right and throw your axe up and down, whereas Logjammers, is just rotated. You move up and down, left and right, but your axes go left and right. So the idea, kind of remains the same on both. But yeah, the PC version, I mean, the big thing there is the latency in online play. We've done a lot to fine tune everything so that there's no lag and that our pings are good and everything. But yeah, MegaCAD has always been about kind of bringing the best parts of retro gaming and marrying them to the best parts of modern gaming. So with Logjammers, it's a simple, fun, highly replayable, addictive formula of this fast gameplay sessions, high skill, high speed, lots of silliness, fun for fun's sake. A lot of retro games kind of, just embodied by the nature of them being so small. The core game had to be fun. It had to be engaging because you didn't have room for all these, bells and whistles, dynamic beard growth, not. So when we took it to PC, we really just took that spirit of the game, of this, this core experience and the core features, and just prettied it up, added some modern things, some things you would expect from a modern game like online play, and made it sort of like a retro experience in this modern shell.
And in terms of multiplayer, how many people will be able to play like both the NES and the PC or modern version of the game?
You mean how many people can play it at once?
Yeah.
It's one-on-one. It's a one-on-one game.
Okay.
Say for NES and PC.
Okay, good to know. Because I know there's only 2 controller ports on the NES, but the NES could do 4-player games with the 4-score.
Oh yeah, with the 4-score, exactly. Yep. We actually have a game called Justice Duel, which takes advantage of the original NES library off that 4-player gameplay. So we wanted to do sort of like an arena fighter game that took advantage of the 4-score and was designed that way. So that's Justice Duel.
Yeah, there weren't that many games that took advantage of it, probably because it was a peripheral.
An expensive peripheral.
Indeed. Now,
Yeah.
in terms of the console ports, are you looking to do that internally, or would another studio be handling like Switch and PS4 development?
We've done Xbox One port in the past with one of our PC games, so I imagine we might handle that internally. We might partner with a publisher depending on how the Kickstarter runs and everything. So it could go either way. So it just depends on what makes the most sense when that decision needs to be made.
Right. And I suppose extending upon that, have you contemplated the possibilities of having a physical version for like the Switch and the PlayStation 4?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that definitely be something we'd be interested in. That's, you know, like I said, we're all about staying physical in a digital world. So yeah, it's definitely on our radar.
I figured as much. I know, in terms of the Xbox One, that's pretty impossible to do for like an indie game because Microsoft has like a minimum run number, and a lot of these projects don't meet those. We've talked to other
Right.
people who are in this kind of niche who have mentioned this. You know, it is unfortunate, but it is Microsoft
Maybe
policy.
that's new ground to be broken there. It's first time for everything. So why not log jammers? That's what
I wish you luck
say.
then. It's like
Thank you.
It's like to continue the lumberjack analogy, let it be the one that breaks down the dam.
That's right.
Anyway, wanted to shift a bit to Coffee Crisis here because it's your other like major release, I suppose, or it's like it's the one that's appeared on more than just retro platformers.
Yep, Coffee Crisis was our, and like I mentioned earlier, it's a coffee and it was our first PC game. Came out earlier this year, and just like Logjammers, it takes the retro formula and add some new features. So in the case of Coffee Crisis, we made it a Neo Rogue Brawler. And anytime you get to a screen lock area where you have to defeat enemies to continue on, we've added a handful of modifiers that could appear. So these are things that are something that's good for the player, like your health regen rates, something that's bad for the player, like all the enemies have extra damage, or something that's just super metal, like coffee and blood raining from the sky. So it keeps the gameplay fresh and interesting every time you play. It's something new.
Yeah, that sounds about right for roguelikes. Like, now, did you use a Kickstarter for that?
We kickstarted the Sega Genesis version, yeah.
And I suppose flowing more to the retro platformers, have you ever looked into like doing a Super NES games, or just other platforms in the Genesis and the NES?
Oh yeah, we actually have some Super Nintendo games that will be coming out this year. One of which is, well, actually, let me back up. We already have a game out for the Super Nintendo. Little Medusa is our first multi-platform title. Came out originally for the NES and is also available on the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo right now. And Fork Parker's Crunch Out will be coming out later this year, and that is a Super Nintendo game. So.
Good. And any other projects you wish to mention at this point?
Those are the big ones right now. The focus is on the Logjammers and then Fort Parker. So that's our collaboration with Devolver. It's a sort of a tongue-in-cheek. Devolver's fake chief financial officer, who's this curmudgeonly old man that's obsessed with money. And the game was made as a partnership with them and that take this charity to raise awareness about crunch in video game development.
That's a good topic to raise awareness of.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm like,
gonna be talking about that here shortly.
Yes.
Again.
Yeah. I'm like, yes. But before that, I should see if my colleagues here have any final questions for you.
I have one. If somebody buys the Logjammers or whatever game from your guys, they also have the option to get the ROM for the original NES, Genesis, or whatever old console version as well, or is that sold separately?
We have demo ROMs available on the website if anyone wants to test out anything, but all our retro games are released on physical cartridges.
Fair enough.
Anything else?
I think that's it for me.
All right. Alex?
I think that was actually the other main question I'd been thinking of is if there's going to be any digital of the retro versions.
Yeah, because some places throw in the ROM, some people you have to buy the cartridge if you want to play the original game.
Which makes sense.
Twilight, anything from you?
No, I'm good. I had the same question. That's already been answered.
Okay.
Yay! I actually asked a good question.
All right. Anyway.
Something broken clock right twice a day.
Sure, why not? Anyway, Zach, thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being here with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, hopefully your Kickstarter is successful. Looking forward to the game. I enjoyed Windjammers back in the day, and hopefully we can review it when it's completed, PC version. Anyway, the game is Logjammerz. It's currently on Kickstarter. I threw a link in the chat, but if you need to, if you're just listening to this, just search for Logjammerz in the Kickstarter search bar, or it's at www.kickstarter.com/projects/MegaCat Studios/Logjammerz throwing action. All right, Petty Fan, play us to the next segment. Welcome to the topic of discussion. So, yeah, this is something that got adjusted because if you haven't been paying attention to the news, well, I do wonder what rock you've been under.
Can I join you under it?
Understandable, but anyway, we're talking about the, Telltale. We're talking about Telltale games. Really, everyone's talking about Telltale games this week.
Because they've done some bad shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because once again, if you missed it, they basically shut down on Friday.
They didn't formally file for bankruptcy, did they?
No, and that's actually.
But they fired all but 25 people and canceled almost all of their oncoming projects.
Well, yeah, but it's we don't know if they're expecting being bought out because usually.
Who would buy them out?
That's why I'm wondering, because.
Well, yeah, that is actually one of the most overlooked aspects of this entire story. The fact that, Telltale is presumably going to go into bankruptcy, but they actually have not. In fact, they have not shut down. They still exist, and they still have a 25-man team working on converting Minecraft Story Mode to Netflix, which is really curious because if you're filing for bankruptcy, you're not going to care about any of those projects, not even that one.
Yeah.
Basically, what we're getting at here is details have been emerging throughout the week. Every day we've been learning new things. Just yesterday, I think, we found out the reason why this happened so quickly. And that is, since Telltale is or was a private developer, they are reliant on outside funding. And,
companies that aren't publicly traded have to get money from other places.
Right.
And I guess even those ones, but whatever.
And, Telltale has had a lot of venture funding over the years, a fair amount of investors. And they were trying to get AMC and a Korean developer, name I forget. It was Smile something. Hang on.
Smilegate, I believe.
Smilegate, yes. AMC and Smilegate. They were apparently the deal was so close that Telltale was management was saying that this was a done deal, except it wasn't. And at once, both of them lost. And a third investor, Lionsgate, wrote off their investment. And the whole house of cards collapsed after that.
Yeah.
Which,
Mm-hmm.
which has led to 250 people being axed out of nowhere. And this has become a lightning rod. It's like crunch has been an issue. We talk about it regularly on this program. And, the mismanagement of Telltale is really elevating this discussion to new dimensions. Because, that was not the only studio to die last week. Capcom Vancouver, about the same size, popped off the mortal coil as well. And I ain't seeing nearly this amount of discussion around them.
Yeah. Well, it's like, if I recall, some of the thing with Telltale is the people who were just got canned were promised bonuses after Walking Dead was finished, and now they're getting shit.
No. It's like they didn't even get severance pay.
Yeah.
They didn't get nothing.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
But yeah,
part
the
of
whole
the
thing is
reason
that-
why the lawsuit thing is happening.
Yeah. And a class action
lot-
lawsuit.
A lot of crunch is predicated on promises of bonuses later or something, although these days a lot of game developers just have basically temp workers do that so they don't have to worry about it.
Well, yeah, the contract workers are extra screwed. But, as it's understood, this is another thing we talk about. Telltale used a lot of passion manipulation to keep people on board. It's one of those, you should be happy you're even working here.
Yeah.
And
especially sort of, I don't know if synergize is the right word, but it kind of goes partially with the way that their business model was, where they did a lot of works with fairly well-known intellectual properties that people could get really interested and invested in working on.
Right. I'm like, and as far as what went wrong at Telltale, it's a complicated subject. Actually, there's not a outside of the trigger spark over here. This is a whole bunch of issues that have been plaguing Telltale from about post The Walking Dead season 1, maybe a little deeper, but it's like, if you want the major reason, it's mismanagement. Pretty much everything is pointed to gross mismanagement at the top. And it's like, and this shit didn't come out of nowhere, because like last year, Telltale had to fire about 25% of their staff. And they said they had to realign and restructure. And yeah, their attempts to pivot, well, were very slow, because they still had to wrap up, all of the stuff they've been working on. The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us. I'm not sure, and the Batman, the Batman series, and so on and so forth. So they still had to make games in that Telltale tool, and the Telltale tool is been one of the bigger points of contention around the developer, because this is a tool set that was developed in 2005. And they
it
were
was
still
pretty high end then, but it's not 2005 anymore.
No, and certainly things have improved. Like, if you look at The Walking Dead season 1 and The Walking Dead season 4, you will see a substantial jump in quality. But the fact of the matter is that this tool set, while it had its, as I understand it, had its advantages in terms of delivering rapid responses between episodes. Like, each series was developed, as the games got released. It wasn't just, here is, they did a complete thing and then they split it up. It's like each episode was an episode. They probably had the outlines and all that stuff, but, as I understand it, they could adjust things pretty quickly with the Telltale tool. The problem is this, this is something that was made back when the PlayStation 2 was king. So increasingly outdated. It doesn't it doesn't have any actual physics interpolations, as I understand it.
Yeah, all that stuff has to be coded by hand, I believe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Among other things. And one of the biggest issues was performance. Now, once again, this is an ancient tool set, so power is not a problem. Like early Telltale games didn't really have a problem running, or if they did, it wasn't like like people have said, especially console side, that Telltale's products have been unplayable slideshows because it's old code, it's old tools running up against new hardware, and these platforms don't have native support for that. I'm sure there's more to it, but yeah. There are other factors. While it's not actually true, a lot of Telltale various games came across as the same game, just a different package. Make no mistake, there were differences, but and I've seen the people who make the games get really testy about this. But here was the perception: each of these games was basically The Walking Dead, only with, say, Batman, or with Minecraft, or whatever. It's like whatever individual innovations these series brought, and make no mistake, some of these series were pretty acclaimed. Like Tales of the Borderlands, for example, is considered to be one of Telltale's best, or The Wolf Among Us. Though on the other hand, you had things like Game of Thrones and Guardians of the Galaxy, which were pretty much called mediocre from the get-go. So quality suffered, and these things came out, just all the time. No one had any chance to really get into them before the next project came out. And so what all this spelled out is a lack of sales. So it's been postulated that in the post The Walking Dead world of Telltale, that only The Walking Dead Season 1, Minecraft Story Mode, and 7 Days to Die, which is a game they published on the consoles. Telltale actually had a publishing division there for a while, but that's one of the things that got sidelined last year. But anyway, those are the only things that actually made money. And yeah, so here's your basic problem. Not only are your games not making money, but Telltale has always mailed licensed games. From the very beginning, excluding, I guess, like Telltale Texas Hold'em and Poker Night at the Inventory, and even that's got licensed characters in it. It's like the closest they got to original IP was some of the things that they did in their pilot program, like Puzzle Agents, and which is still based off of a licensed property. Or even Hector, that's a collaboration. It's like one of the grand mysteries of Telltale is they never attempted to do their own IP. Like, never. And they were around for about 12, 13 years. Like, that still flabbergasts me, but that is, and it's it's from what I've read, the the licensed stuff was seen as a safer bet. Because it's the old licensing mentality, and well, here's the thing that Telltale has learned the hard way, i.e., why that business model has by and large died out, because those are risky on their own merits. To put it simply, Batman ain't coming cheap. Game of Thrones isn't coming cheap. It's like back in the day, they licensed things like Bone and Sam and Max and Strong Bad, Wallace and Gromit. Much smaller IPs, which means like a steady series selling 300,000 copies was okay. They got more ambitious with the NBC Universal stuff, and they also worked on a lot of Law and Order for Ubisoft. That was a condition of investment. But when you're pumping out Guardians of the Galaxy and so on and so forth, and that stuff isn't drawing well, it doesn't come off as a surprise that these things were quite the money sink. And of course, there's the location. They were based in San Rafael, which is a suburb. They worked in the Bay Area, which is one of the most expensive places you can work in this country. And they were a studio of about 300 people. And so they had a tremendous burn rate. Like, that many people working in that expensive a place, all these factors. And it really does showcase what happened to this company. It's not all the pieces, I'm sure, but this is a good overall. This is why Telltale collapsed. And, and I suppose the biggest surprise is that it didn't happen sooner. But I suppose that might be attributed to the veneer they put up. Telltale always had the air of a very successful company. They were the forefront, cutting edge of narrative, interactive fiction. I really can't call what they were putting out post like The Walking Dead adventure games. Not in the traditional sense. They got more in common with like the walking simulators than they do with King's Quest.
Walking simulator visual novels.
Something like that. The point is, they were definitely a new kind of adventure game.
New is one way to frame it.
Yeah. But it's also, looking at the larger scene, I can't exactly say that Telltale was on the front anymore. Not compared to, say, Don't Nod, Supermassive Games, I'm trying to think, Night School, which was actually founded by Telltale vets, ditto Camposanto. Like, these are the people who made the likes of Life is Strange, Firewatch, Oxenfree, and Until Dawn.
Yeah, people have been doing a lot of stuff with the adventure, story-driven game.
Yeah, hell, even Wajidai has emerged at the forefront with Unavowed. It's like their best product launch ever. So, yeah, it's like whatever Telltale was doing in their space wasn't breaking out to the audience. profits anymore. And that was probably another factor that instituted in their collapse. You know, it's like, you know, not they sh- and going back to the engine stuff, they should have pivoted to Unity like 5 to 6 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah. It would have spared them a lot of the pain of going through it now.
Yeah, like most of the stuff I had to do
Yeah.
by hand is done either automatically in Unity or can easily be fixed with a plugin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the future of Telltale, so, you know, this is where things get really interesting. Outside of, you know, all of the legal maneuvering we've been talking about, they will still be around for as long as Minecraft Story Mode needs converting to Netflix.
And then after that, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
in the meantime, they announced the other day that they are pursuing options to complete The Walking Dead, the final season, which
unsurprising. It's kind of their flagship thing. So
well,
it'd probably be better if they finish
now
it.
We're getting into a contentious situation because Telltale announced that they were looking for partners to help them finish this thing, and people have exploded because, you know, they want the people that got fired to get paid. You know, severance pay.
Oh no, I'm not saying that they're necessarily going to do it the right way. Just like it would probably be better for the name if they like finished it.
Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of unknowns with this suggestion. With what, like, they were being purposely vague. Apparently, we will find out by the end of the week what they mean. I'm like, so they said that they are seeking to complete it in some form. Now, that's a key phrase because that could mean like a fucking compilation of the scripts, or it gets released in graphic novel form,
or like a
that.
cheap Rush mobile port.
You know, yeah, that is another thing. Like, what we are, like, another developer or even another publisher or a combo of that. There are, you know, people have been it's like getting pissed, and we don't even know what the final form is going to look like here. Also, I gotta say, like, I understand the plight of the people and all that stuff, but, you know, there's another issue with this series being unfinished. So until like either today or yesterday, this thing was available for sale. And, you know, up until Friday, there was the expectation that this thing was going to be finished. That is to say, you know, people have been saying, you know, don't buy Telltale's products, don't support them. Well, that ignores the fact that maybe not a lot of people, but people bought this bought this thing expecting
like
series.
as a season thing.
Yeah, the season pass, they're basically owed this.
Yeah, it's like, and Microsoft has been offering refunds for this. Other platforms have not. So
oh dear.
So what that means is money's been invested already, and, you know, and people not being happy with, you know, spending money for a thing that they were expecting to get is actually reasonable. Like, you know, it's like I get the larger issue is the people who got fired suddenly, but it's also, yeah, Telltale took money for this, and there was the expectation that this product would be delivered, and they're on the hook for that. You know, that's why they've got to finish this thing. It's not like with The Wolf Among Us Season 2, which just isn't going to be a thing. That, you know, that probably, you know, that was entering production and shit like that. This is halfway, like, through its development.
Yeah, I totally forgot they had the season pass for that.
So
Yeah.
it's like, along these lines, I get, it's like either, the people who paid for this get their product or they get a refund. And and that kind of ties into the, the one and the other, like getting refunds, paying severance, with what money?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's another reason why poo-pooing this this proposal is a bit premature, because we don't know it's like, for example, let's say THQ Nordic takes over it, or Ubisoft. They acquire the license, the assets, the everything to get it done, and they use one of their developers, or they get an outside developer. I'm like, what's the morality on that? That's my question. Now, as far as Telltale receiving the money for that, yeah, that should go to the fired people, but it probably won't.
It definitely won't.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what the whole class action lawsuit's for now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, it's like selling off what they can sell off is kind of how you pay people.
And like one of the thing about the whole, like, people were getting up in arms like for the lawsuit. One of the reasons why people actually file for bankruptcy is to protect themselves from stuff like this. They haven't filed for bankruptcy yet, therefore their asses are still on the table.
Yes. And more to the point, they may have violated the WARN Act. It's a California labor law. Which says you have to give 60 days notice. Unless, there are exceptions to this, and this is why you go to court over these things.
Yeah, and like one of those exceptions is bankruptcy. They never filed it, so...
Yeah, it's like...
If they would have actually filed for bankruptcy, this lawsuit might not have happened. They might still actually be going after the heads, for the unpaid wages and stuff, but it wouldn't be nearly as big.
No. So, the fate of all this is still up in the air.
I imagine this isn't the last time we're talking about this.
Probably not. I'm like, because, this is an ugly situation and it's not done. It's like, we had the climax on Friday, but the postscript hasn't been written yet.
Yep.
So,
and this could go many a different way.
Yeah. I mean, hell, somebody could end up. There might be a company out there who is insane enough to buy Telltale as it is right now.
That's one of those. What value does Telltale have?
Well, and that, like from that perspective, it's not a lot, honestly, because what do they have? Well, let's see. Their name value is in the toilet.
Indeed.
Their tool sets are outdated.
Yeah, if this was like 5 years ago, their tool might be worth something, but
they don't have IPs. They have a lot of licenses,
which probably won't be going anywhere in the result of a buyout.
And to compound things, rights issues. So, The Walking Dead, for example, that was an original product within the Walking Dead universe. So, there are questions about who owns, say, Clementine. Does Telltale own her, or does Skybound own her?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it is all work for hire. The IP holder owns that. Sometimes it's split.
Yeah.
Sometimes characters are owned. Like these are the kind of details you need that are needed to know. Like
I think that's one of those weird things with like Sora from Kingdom Hearts.
Another thing is buying Telltale now means buying a assload of fucking debt.
Like, isn't it in the six figures?
You usually only buy debt if you have an idea of how to leverage it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing. This is why companies let the patient die. It's actually, it's better for them to scavenge the corpse for usable parts rather than buying an alien patient and absorbing all of that debt.
Yeah. It's one of those, again, it's easier to go in after the bankruptcy than just try and save them before. Unless you got a
honestly,
real good plan.
It's a good name, and honestly, it's a good name for like that kind of game. So that might be one of the more valuable things they have.
Well, yeah. Well, once again, that name can be sold off to somebody.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We get Telltale Nordic.
Oh God. Add one more skull to the mantle.
I'm just giving you
I know.
It's like be a new company just using the old name. There are other examples of this, like Big Huge Games. But anyway, so yeah, that is the very, very long road that Telltale has been walking for a while now, and we'll see what happens because, like I said, we are poised to learn more very shortly. All right, so that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. As always, if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when we are on air. Anyway, coming up on the week ahead, let's see, no Friday show this week. We'll probably have one next week, but in the meanwhile, Sunday we have reviews of Crime Girl and Next Up Hero. Next week we do not have a Tuesday interview. October 3rd we'll be having Aaron Arcanda of the Undergroundies Incorporated. So until next time, I wish you good gaming.